shade of the cypress tree, no one felt pain.
So in The Little Hill, you actually call the lyric tale rather than opera. And I wonder, how has your relationship with the art form changed in this time between that first opera and Picture a Day Like This?
Well, I wrote Into the Little Hill around the age of 45, having wanted to write opera since I was about 9. And there's a very long gap. I waited a long time.
Yes.
I had to wait to find the most amazing collaborator. I had to wait to find stories. But also, Martin and I, had to find a way that felt right for writing opera in the beginning of the 21st century, and that was very hard. I had an intuition that I really needed to deal with story, with narrative, but not in the 19th century way, not in an expressionistic way, not in a symbolist way, not in a Baroque or classical way. We needed to find something fresh. And a lot of composers and their collaborators felt that was a challenge, and many of them went in another direction: ritualistic opera, anti-opera, opera within opera, static opera, minimalist opera. And they can all produce wonderful things, but it wasn't right for me. We didn't call our first work an opera, it's a lyric tale, and it's very anti-naturalistic indeed. The whole thing is recited by two singers who play not only a multiplicity of characters, but they actually play a crowd. They actually play all the mothers. One singer plays all the mothers of the town. It's a story of the Pied Piper. At the end, all the mothers all together have a lament, represented by one person. And they're constantly referring to themselves and making it clear to the audience that they are narrating the story. They're not showing it. That transferred and developed into original skin. In other words, the characters do refer to themselves. They make it clear that we're not pretending we're in the medieval Provence, but we are telling the story in the 21st century for you. That is made transparently clear all the time. There are a lot of anachronisms in the text, and the mechanism of telling a story, it is made very, very clear. In a way, it's more artificial than previous operatic styles. But at the same time, in this age, the age of the movies, we were trying to find a way of actually rekindling spontaneity and immediacy in telling stories. That was our ambition. Then our next opera got rid of those conventions, and in a way it's more naturalistic but very strange. And that stays the case with our most recent opera, Picture a Day Like This. In this one, as I said to Martin, I didn't want continuous flowing through narrative. I wanted moments of reflection. I asked him at some point along the line, please give me a soliloquy. And also, I don't know if I asked him this. I don't know. Maybe he's so subtle and attentive and infinitely subtle in the way he works with me. I feel so infinitely grateful that I've had a collaborator of this kind, unique person. And I may have said, I wonder what would happen if you gave me an ABA structure. But in any case, maybe I didn't say that, but bang in the heart of the work, before the work changed direction, fundamentally, absolutely at its heart, is an aria. He calls it aria, and it has about 5 lines of words, and the first 3 lines, after a gap of 2, return. And so I had to think, what can I do with this soliloquy, this outburst of vehemence and, in a way, despair? And I liked the idea of playing with this type of ancient operatic symmetry, which I really don't like normally, because I don't like people to guess what's going to happen once you reach the end of the middle bit. I don't want to do the same music. But the idea of playing with symmetry and in a way deconstructing it and turning it inside out, but still very much having it there, is something I enjoy, the challenge of that. So there's all manner of symmetries going on within the orchestra and in the vocal line, but they're dislocated with each other. And when the text of the opening section returns, the music could not be more different. The approach to the structure is almost identical, I'd say, but the type of expression, in my view, the first outburst, having met now 3 or 4 of the people that she was meant to encounter, and all of them are hopeless. and disturbing for her, and she's not getting anywhere near the arrival point of her quest, indeed further and further from it. So she's furious, and that fury and vehemence is shown in the first stanza when it comes back. It's like, it seemed to my imagination, though it's still playing with symmetry in the same way that the first part did. The expression has changed completely. It's sung almost to herself, or even she's singing to the baby that she can't reach, the child she can't reach anymore, and it's entirely gentle, almost like a lullaby. You know? So I subverted the form that I'd been given. That really interested me a lot. But at the same time, deep under the surface is a decouplo aria.
That's really remarkable, and it does stand out so much in the score, looking through it as well, to see the word aria in a 21st century opera is quite a remarkable thing. I've got to ask you about your 9-year-old self. You said your 9-year-old self would have liked to write an opera. Do you remember your first experiences of opera?
Yes. My first experience of opera was English National Opera, the Colosseum. When I was about 9 or 10, I was taken to see the Magic Flute. I'm afraid, already adoring Beethoven and Berlioz, I found it very boring. And then I went to see the Count Ori of Rossini. Though I did think there's some music I can still remember from the Magic Flute, which I did like, but all the same, wasn't a piece which cast a magic spell on me. Then I went to see Count Ori, and I hated it.
These are inauspicious beginnings, I've got to say.
Well, I had listened to other operas, though, on recordings, I think. And then, maybe, I went to The Damnation of Faust, which isn't really an opera, and is much darker.
It's by Berlioz.
Berlioz. And I was entranced by it, particularly the dark, frightening bits, and the way it propels towards the ride to hell. Above all, I loved. I couldn't believe that the sounds the orchestra was through. I put all the way through. Berlioz's imagination is so wild and so uncontrolled and visionary. But around the same time, I was getting to know Strauss's tone poems, and there's Berlioz, the fantastic symphony, and I knew Romeo and Juliet as well. And the tone poems of Strauss led me to Salome and to Electra, and from there to Wozzeck, and then backwards to Parsifal and to Tristan. And those are the works which I adored when I was a teenager. They're very, very well written for teenagers. And say Wozzeck still remains perhaps my favorite opera ever written. Pelléas of Debussy and Janacek's operas were to follow quite soon afterwards and remain absolutely central to my love of opera. And then Monteverdi, an early opera, followed quite a lot later.
I wonder whether you can put your finger on what it is that opera does for you now as a composer more generally. What does it allow you to do?
It allows me, when I have a text like Martin's text, to compose it about 6 to 8 times faster.
Really? Goodness.
Oh, without question. I worked out that both big operas took 26 months at my table. And we're talking about an hour and a half of music. For me to write an hour and a half of orchestral music would probably take 6 times longer, which means 15 years. It's just not a nice thought. And also, I just love everything about writing for the stage. I am so fascinated by theatre, and I love the richness and complexity of human expression. At every line that I give, I can make fundamental decisions about, from my side, what are these people thinking? What are they aiming to communicate? What are they feeling, which is something entirely different? How are they trying to sing from the vantage point of the other people they're singing to? There's such complexity underneath the surface. At the same time, there's a narrative drawing me along, which pulls me forward. And in the text Martin gives me, there are such a degree of structure, something which fascinates both of us, such a degree of emotion as well. Plus, he is so wonderful in the imagery he gives me. It's so rich in a sensual way, in things that can be smelled, things that can be touched, seen, heard also, in terms of colour, in terms of temperature, in terms of weather. These are things which I find, I suppose, the world will be inspirational for me as a composer. And Also, it has allowed me to write on a relatively enormous scale. 90 minutes is not on a Wagnerian scale, and I don't think that wouldn't suit me. I don't think it's that type of vast late 19th century duration. Would feel authentic in the 21st century. But I have a dream I had, which was to fill a whole evening with musical invention, and that's been possible thanks to writing for opera. And also, I love the lighting, I love the costumes and the direction. It's wonderful to work with singers, and it's wonderful as I've conducted almost all of the premieres of my works to be there somewhere working with the stage, with so much collaboration. When I go to conduct an orchestra, I arrive on a Monday and the concert maybe on Thursday, and that's it. Of course, I've done a lot of preparation and a huge amount of intensity, a huge degree of intensity of rehearsal can happen during those 3 or 4 days, but it's not the same as being immersed in a place where you're rehearsing and with the same people and shaping something gradually over 2.5 months perhaps. And that's a wonderful, wonderful experience. I should add one other thing. When I was a young child, the greatest good fortune I had at school is that the children, were allowed to put on plays, and those plays needed music. And so I must have done about 8 to 10 productions at school in which I wrote, performed and conducted the music with the live performances, 3 performances over 1 week. And one or two of the plays that I wrote for needed 30, 45 minutes of music. And so the theatre and also the business of performing in the theatre and the relationship and the tension created with an audience was instilled in me at a very, very young age. And it's actually is part of the way I view concert music as well. So it was quite sad for me that I had to wait 25 years or so before writing my first opera.
Closed his eyes, but when the